Alright, fellas and gals. So this is how we're gonna do this right here. So I want this to be one of the first ones. Because, of course, I mean, it's not like we're gonna be back and revisit this, of course, like when we talk about topics like this that, very like a very prominent, one, a very talked about topic when such as the thing, when it comes to wrestlers. But a certain thing, though, like as to when it comes to a face of the company, top wrestler, draw, as far as the context goes, and what I'm about to talk about right here. But I want this to be one of the very first ones. I feel like so, which is why you're going to be seeing it how you're seeing it, very like raw and uncut. Not that I'm still going to be like most videos. I'm just like this is how this is like a like a brief, like a prologue, pretty much. Like these are videos that I want to really talk about, but of course, down the line that we're gonna have for revisit and have these other videos, topics to where we get to it and talk like finally we can on a larger scale we can really get down to it, teeth and nail. But as far as I want to there's no sense why we couldn't have a little brief quick discussion about what we're about to go into when it comes to these types of discussions, these types of videos, topics. So, and in this context that I want to bring, this is going to be one of the first of them. And yeah, I like talking about just I guess but in this one context of when it comes to current today's wrestlers, current day or whatever you want to call it, modern day, current today's professional wrestlers, or so they like to call themselves. And I wanted to talk about the aspect of when it comes to the top guy and the face of the company, or just as a wrestler, that when it comes to being that face of the company, or when it comes to being whether that it's a wrestler or whether or not they draw. And I wanted to talk about that with modern day wrestlers, current wrestlers, because it's very explanatory in itself when you bring up such a thing as that. I mean, when it comes to, I guess, whether it's for me personally or just the public perception about when it comes to professional wrestlers, like when you look at a Hogan, and when you look at an Austin, The Rock, of course, even a Cena, and probably to some sort of degree when you a Roman Reigns. So you have guys that have been the face for a period of their respective periods in a time, especially of a company that not only also has a much more impact, also had a bigger impact on professional wrestling. You can talk about that alone when you talk about somebody like a Hogan and a Rock and an Austin. But Hogan that defied just pretty much generations. And you have to look at the time too, of course, when Hogan, when people talk about it and why he has such an influence and impact on just human beings around the world. And I feel like when we watch entertainment, and of course we have our people that of course that we absolutely adore, and whether they may be fictional or not, and in this case celebrities, but we have the people that we hold dear and just really have a passion to be so obsessed with, because whether it comes to their character, their personality, their emotional struggles, all that falls in line in between. And of course the name, I guess their alter ego, what holds dear. And I feel like, especially in that time when pop culture at the time, and especially when you talk about the 80s, just how everything was just so grand and luxurious, and it was or in this case about professional wrestling, to where it was about, I guess, for a long time at that point too. Yeah, well, it was just the whole thing about we're just like heroes and villains, and in that case though, heels, faces, baby faces and heels, so hero and villains, to where the public, it was such a popular thing. And yeah, it was a very also incredible thing to have Vince took that, or insert somebody like took that to how it was very, it was very incredible and very genius when you look at it too. That I always like, because of course when you look at entertainment, and at least like, because it's always, professional wrestling was always different in that. And it was like professional wrestling was always, it was like it was a reflection of the times that it was in. And I guess in the 80s in that case, because it was all about superheroes and villains. And then when you get to, of course, you get to the 90s, well, like I said, you get to the 90s, where it was like, that was pretty much counterculture. If I'm putting that right, and it was like a rebellion time, and it was so like, edgy and raw. And when you get like the Attitude Era, where it's like you get, it's like where you have like wrestlers that are like, that resemble serial killers, and that resemble dead men, really supernatural beings like Undertaker and Kane too. And of course, beer drinking, badass, just I would break your neck, SOBs, like pretty much a Stone Cold that spewed everything about, masculinity, or, a Rock that was like pretty much an over the top character, a very, very over the top, just, entertaining character. And let's say plenty of characters that you had like that. Of course, you could say the same thing about the 2000s, but when it was like, only in that case though, still the rise of the internet and as such and everything, where you still, but still, and at least when it comes to professional wrestling, to where you had, well, still like you had a neon version of the Attitude Era, but like you had when you talk about guys, like just like when I talked about in that post. Whatever, if you saw it, like when you had guys such as Batista and John Cena and Randy Orton and Brock Lesnar, guys that were young guys, that basically just guys that nobody knew at all. And you're talking about building from the ground up, that are today some of the most recognizable names that you can look at. And I guess, when you're thinking about it, I guess in my opinion, or the point that I'm trying to make is that, and then when you get today, where, you look, somebody as a Roman Reigns is probably, is not even that. He may, I said, like, I guess to to a few people, but I don't really know, I guess when it comes to the mainstream and just in general public, not really, unless he's like, without the machine of the WWE, then what really is a Roman Reigns? Yeah, people may have that idea construed, and what, of course, how the propaganda and how WWE is always, especially these days, how they like to, how they like to manipulate and portray the audience another one thing and show them another. Yeah, like that's the thing. So like it's where you get to today and today's culture, who really is a recognizable name, and it's almost like it's not the driving force like a Hogan or an Austin and Rock was, and even in some case like a John Cena. Because at this point, yeah, too, because he's a name in Hollywood. He's pretty much a name in the general public right now. But it's like, today where you look at it, it's like, who is a name in professional wrestling right now that the general public, that the normal average person, human being walking around can relate to, or can really identify? And it's not like that. I'm not really saying, they can relate to them. But to not to the like, but basically the still the casual, because you still have, of course, not, but basically not to the casual that really can look at them and go and say like, yeah, who is this? Like, who is this person? Who no, there's no idea that they know who they are. And you look at, especially with it's kind of astonishing too when you like have, but I guess that like it's kind of like it's really is astonishing. Where I look at a wrestler, when I look at a wrestler today, it's not like, and they just or I can, it's let me rephrase that. It is truly astonishing how I can look at a wrestler today, somebody like a Ricochet, that has the gall, that tries to pretend that they have the balls that they do, as if that they're this somebody because that they've been put on a pedestal by their cult-like fan base. And I mean, you can say that about especially I feel like whereas a generation of wrestlers now, especially like when you had the culprit, I definitely feel like is a driving culprit. It's not like, but yeah, I mean, because of course, even though you have a few, like when you talk about somebody like CM Punk, and of course, I mean him being such an outspoken, controversial figure in professional wrestling, and I feel like, yeah, you definitely I guess him, if aside from Brian, yeah, you get a culture now to where, especially, yeah, a generation of professional wrestlers to where they're just, I mean, it's not like how, let's say, because of course, I mean, you say, so like, you have, of course, I mean, there's always been egos, there's always been a amount of wrestlers, but, there's always been those types of wrestlers that believed, of course, that they were better than another. I mean, you need to have, and it's not like, of course, you needed to have that mindset to be able to thrive. But I mean, that's the difference between somebody like an Austin, or even somebody like a Kurt Angle, a Shawn Michaels, and even let's say a Benoit and Eddie Guerrero, like those guys. Like they had, like whether they were, or even a Bret Hart, like they were a valuable asset. They actually also contributed to the guy that I was actually drawing the big bucks. To where you look at guys today like a Sami Zayn, a Kevin Owens, nobody knows who the fuck they are, and they're not. They're not. And make no mistake about it, they're not draws. And I'm not saying that people could really get into these characters. I mean, people could really, really get behind these professional wrestlers, but it's almost like their real life counterpart takes over that, to where it's like, yeah, like, I mean, like, it's almost like they're yeah, of course, also too about them, it's like their politics really, instead of just their talent really speaking for them, it's the fact that it's their politics that really, especially to really make it, that's all that there is to them. And I mean, that's another topic for another day when it comes to just speaking your mind in politics and everything like that. But I want to enjoy. I want to have fun when it comes. Definitely when it comes to my entertainment. Because when it comes to my, don't I could care less. Like, I don't want to be reminded of what's going on in the real wide world, outside world. I mean, if it's for entertainment, I guess, of course. But like, yeah, like it's just like, you have it last, of course, like you have today's wrestlers that it's just they really, aside from the talent that they could work on and potentially be, what they actually perceive themselves to be. Like, it's just instead of it being about the entertainment, instead of it being about professional wrestling, it's it's them and screaming at the president of the United States, and it can be something like that. Like, it's really draw drop. Like I say, especially nowadays professional wrestling, it's more about the behind the scenes than it is about the actual the talent being inside the ring, and and now that kind of that really does like yeah that tugs at me a bit, man. That it just really really I just like it just it's really extremely upsetting to really think about that and to like believe that we're in a point in time to where just every aspect when you talk about the wrestlers, the companies even more now so just everything about it, the industry is just used as the back card to really get almost like yeah, just like for wrestlers even coming inside of it. It's really just for them so they can use it as a backstring to really get over them, to really get it's over themselves, and it's not really like the what you actually think about it. They want to get themselves over to where it's like that they're chasing after this other thing besides professional, in spite of professional wrestling, that they want to get over, and it's ridiculous. It's just it's fucking it's yeah, it's just incredibly really ridiculous to really sit down and look at that. But that yeah, I mean, it's like yeah, and that just really speaks to how yeah, there like no current day wrestler. What do you want to think about in any promotion, whether it's WWE and of course AEW? There's no modern day today wrestler that is a draw, and that's the facts. Without it's more so. Like I said, they're just a spoke that promotes the company, that promotes AEW or WWE, and that's pretty much it. There are no stars. There are no larger than life characters. They're like, as opposed to, like I said, as opposed to Hollywood, because that's kind of like the same thing in Hollywood right now too, and other forms of medium too. It's just it's just reflected, and when you look at the times too, also of where. Of course, I wouldn't say that. Of course, because it's not like to say that it's always been an outspoken and you always had like has been about. No, I'm like it's just more so. It's like what I'm actually I guess what I'm trying to say is like a heavy handedness of instead of the entertainment being, and it's not to say that you could do some of that aspects also too while also being preachy, but like yeah, because like I said, no exception as wrestling has also been the scapegoat for that, or where you can use storylines, or where you can use however it may be about humor or a really serious moment that can actually be about something, of course, that's actually just is taken. It's a real life occurrence, and you can actually put it no, like of course. But I'm just saying, like, it's just more so, of course, like of just. It's just more so about that taking out of just that. And yeah, it's just absolutely not fun at all. But yeah, I mean, can't tell me that there is a wrestler today that right now that is an actual, because I said that doesn't exist anymore. There's not one single wrestler right now that's a draw.